Hey guys, this is Tearless here with another Warlords of Draenor beta video. We are now into the Mage videos, and I'm going to be looking at Arcane Mages first. I apologize for the last two videos being so long, but Elemental and Enhancement had a lot of under-the-surface things going on that I wanted to flesh out and let everyone know that was going on. That is not going to be the case with Mages. Mages as a whole really have had not many changes to them at all. They've had a lot of pruning happen here and there between the specs, but overall their changes are mostly in the talent tree, and that is where the bulk of this video will happen. So as far as Arcane Mages are concerned, I'm going to be looking mostly at their new spell effects, their changed and new abilities, their new glyph, their new Draenor perks, and then, as I said, their talents are the big portion of this. So they have one new ability, and that is Amplify Magic. This is across mages as a whole, and Blizzard felt that mages did not have enough raid utilities. So Amplify Magic is there to fill that void. Amplify Magic amplifies the effects of helpful magic, increasing all healing received by 12% for all party and raid members within 100 yards. So basically, if there's a phase on a boss in which it's doing a lot of damage, healers can call out for Amplify Magic just to help with the mitigation of that damage. So, cool spell visual. It's nice. Imagine that going across 30 to 40 individuals. So, it's a pretty cool, nice little addition to mages that they have. Nice utility. Mages have, or arcane mages I should say, have about 5 changed abilities. The first of these is Presence of Mind, which has been taken out of the talent tree. Blizzard felt that Presence of Mind was too powerful to be in the talent tree anymore, and at the same time they felt that Arcane Mage did not have enough utility, so they naturally just took Presence of Mind and added it to Arcane only. So I guess you could say Presence of Mind has returned home back to where it belongs. There is one change to this ability though, and that it no longer can apply to polymorphs, so there's a PvP nerf in that one. Mage Armor is now a passive ability, as are all the armors with their respective specs. So Mage Armor is exactly the same, it's just a passive ability, you don't apply it to your character anymore. Arcane charges now last 15 seconds, up from 10 seconds. Slow used to reduce the target's movement speed and then also increase the target's casting time. And the casting time portion of that has been removed, so now slow only reduces the target's movement speed. And then last but not least is a really tiny change that Cone of Cold has been increased to a 12-second cooldown instead of a 10-second cooldown. Overall, new and changed abilities, Arcane Mages did not receive much there. They did receive kind of a chunk of their abilities removed, and that's because Blizzard looked at mages each spec and said, hey, does this class actually use these abilities? And they looked at them and they're like, okay, no, they don't, and then so they just removed them from the spec. Mages as a whole lost improved counterspell. Your counterspell, that was the 4-second silence, and they lost conjure mana gems, so you're no longer going to be able to have those mana gems anymore, which isn't going to be a problem because mana is not as important as it used to be. As a spec, Arcane has lost Shatter, Ice Lance, Frost Armor, Deep Freeze, Blizzard, Molten Armor, and Flame Strike. Things like Flame Strike and Blizzard now share a button with Arcane Explosion, so if I switch specs, that button will just switch with the others. So they have an AoE for each one. Same thing with the armors. The armors will just switch based on your spec. But overall, they just removed the button bloat of the abilities that you never used in Arcane spec. The only one that I think that would probably be a loss would be Ice Lance if you wanted to like tag a target or whatnot. You don't have that quick, easy one now. But Arcane already had Arcane Barrage anyways, so that wasn't too big of a deal. There is one brand new glyph for Arcane Mages, and that is Glyph of Interruption. When you successfully counterspell a target, the remaining cooldown on counterspell is reduced by 4 seconds. It says exclusive with Glyph of Counterspell. That basically means that you cannot have both active on your bar at the same time. You can only have one of these as one of your active glyphs. That is the only new glyph that there is for Arcane Mages. All of the other glyphs stay the same. They have not changed at all. Which leads us into Draenor perks. Arcane got the better half of Draenor perks, if you ask me. They got some nice ones, and then they got some boring ones. But going to my general spellbook here. The first one is Enhanced Arcane Blast, and each stack of Arcane Charge now reduces the cast time of Arcane Blast by 5%. There is enhanced arcane missiles, which increases the maximum stack of arcane missiles by 1. There is improved Arcane Barrage, which increases the damage dealt to secondary targets of Arcane Barrage from 50 to 100%. There is improved Arcane Blast, improved Arcane Explosion, and improved Arcane Missiles, which are just straight damage increases, not very entertaining. There is improved Arcane Power, which Arcane Power now reduces the cost of your spells by 10% instead of increasing the cost by 10%. There's improved Blink, which I can't remember if it's still in the game or it used to be in the game as a talent or a glyph of some sort, but your movement speed is increased by 60% for 2 seconds after using Blink. And then last but not least, there's improved Evocation, which reduces the cooldown of Evocation by 30 seconds, making it 1.5 second cast time. Overall, only 3 damage buff increased perks out of the 9, which honestly I think is pretty awesome. I don't like the straight damage buffs, so they got some interesting stuff such as improved Blink being exclusive to the class and enhanced Arcane Missiles, that extra stack of Arcane Missiles. So not bad overall on Draenor perks. That leads us to the bulk of the changes with Arcane Mages, and that is all in talent tree. I'm just going to start from the top and go all the way to the bottom so you can see everything that's going on. First off, I mentioned that Presence of Mind is now gone. Evanesce replaces it, and you fade into the nether, avoiding all attacks against you for 3 seconds. Castable while another spell is in progress and unaffected by the global cooldown. It replaces Ice Block. I'll show you the spell visual here. It's pretty cool. It turns you kind of ghosty. It's on a tier that's supposed to be about mobility, but I don't know. It's a nice trade-off with Ice Block because Ice Block's got a long cooldown, but it's kind of weird that it fits on that tier. The next tier is the defensive tier, and you'll notice Alter Time is here. Alter Time used to be available to just a baseline ability, and now it has been moved into a talent. Its damage modifier has been removed, so you can no longer go back to a state where you had like all these DPS cooldown buffs. You can only get the health, I guess, benefit of Alter of Time. So it fits with the whole tier about being a kind of a DPS, I guess. Not a DPS, but it fills in with a tier being all about defensive cooldowns. They may have to reduce the cooldown, 1.5 minute cooldown on this to make it competitive with the others though. Ring of Frost, the only thing I want to show you with Ring of Frost is that it has a new spell visual. There's a new spell visual for Frozen Talents as a whole, and I'll show it to you right here. Gonna click it here, and you'll see the new Frozen animation that they have here. So that's a nice new spell visual that they've added into the game. There is one thing I need to say about Ice Ward. Ice Ward now, its Frozen effect now shares diminishing returns with all other Frozen root effects. So no longer, that's happening across the board with all specs, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. That's just a reduction on CC as a whole throughout the game to make PvP more enjoyable. Trust me, it's gonna be way better than what it is on live. The 60 tier has been pretty much virtually unchanged, which leads us to the level 75 tier. This used to be the bomb tier, but now you can see Nether Tempest is the only one here. All the bombs have been merged into that first talent, and it is now the kind of AoE tier. Since Nether Tempest is now an arcane only ability, they've kind of been able to put some arcane flavor to it, and that is the fact that damage is increased by 50% per arcane charge at cast time. So I can go ahead and bulk up with arcane charges here and get my 4 arcane charges, and then I can pop Nether Tempest and it'll do more damage. Another thing you'll notice is that the little, I guess, projectiles hit the ground and they do little AoE damage. So that keeps it in flavor with the tier's theme of being an AoE tier. The next talent here is Unstable Magic, which Arcane Blast, Fireball, Frostbolt have a 15% chance to explode on impact, dealing an additional 50% damage to the target and to all other enemies within 8 yards. I don't know how the effect that this will be, or how popular it will be. I see PvEers more taking Nether Tempest, but I could be wrong. I haven't really looked into what they have. Numbers haven't been finalized, so we don't know yet what people will be taking. But I don't see the huge benefit of Unstable Magic at the moment. Plus, it's just a passive, so there's not much to it. The last talent here is Supernova, and Supernova replaces your Frost Nova. Frost Nova has been increased to a 30-second cooldown from 25, and if you take the third talent on this 75 tier, it will, all three of them on all three specs will replace Frost Nova and bring it down to, I think all of them bring it down to a 25-second recharge. I could be wrong on that, but it gives it 2 charges. So the cool thing about this is it causes a pulse of arcane energy around a target enemy or ally, dealing 10,000 arcane damage to all enemies within 8 yards and knocking them up. A primary enemy target will take 100% increased damage, maxed 2 charges. So the cool thing about that is the fact that you can use it on an ally. So just imagine, a healer's under some extreme pressure in an RPG. You can hit them with a supernova and have them all knocked up in the air and give your, players some relief. We can use his boomkin right here. You can see the explosion around him. It's pretty nice. Nice spell visual to go with it. I'll use it again. You can see it right here. So it's not a bad spell visual. I honestly see most PvPers taking this one just because of its usage in helping out, its utility usage in helping out your healer and so forth. The level 90 tier used to be a tier all about mana regeneration, and since mana regeneration has basically been taken out of the game, it's been repurposed. It's now a DPS cooldown tier. Rune of Power has had its mana regen effects removed from it, and it no longer replaces evocation. Mirror Image has been taken out of the class and put into the tier as a whole. And then Incanter's Flow, which replaces Incanter's Ward, which was that shield, is magical energy flows through you while in combat, building up to 25% increased damage and then diminishing down to 5% increased damage, cycling every 10 seconds. That's a very interesting talent. It's like the Druid's new Eclipse bar. It's just constantly flowing back and forth between 25% and 5%. I don't know how popular it will be. That is something we'll have to see when numbers have been tuned more correctly. Last but not least, we have the level 100 tier. There's not really a theme for this tier in my opinion, but we'll just take a look at it one by one. Overpowered is a passive that just casting arcane missiles extends your arcane power by 2 seconds. I don't know how popular this is, especially since arcane missiles has to be actually like a proc for you to actually use it, so not sure about how popular this one will be. My personal favorite, and the one that I see pretty much all the PvPers taking, is Arcane Orb, which launches an Arcane Orb forward from the Mage's position, traveling up to 40 yards, dealing 6,000 arcane damage to enemies it passes through. It also grants the Mage an arcane charge for every time it deals damage. Blizzard, I swear, looked at their classes as a whole and they said, we're going to give mages every cool spell visual in game, and that's what they did. So check out this Arcane Orb. It is one of the most impressive spell visuals they put in the new expansion. And it just travels across the ground like that, really nice. And since I hit 5 targets, I have 4 arcane charges, so I can go ahead and use my Arcane Barrage. And just so you know, the 2 little tiny ones you saw there were multi-strikes. But it's not a bad ability, especially for building up your arcane charges really quickly, and then you can burst again immediately after. So I see that one being taken more than the others just because the other 2 are so underwhelming. The other one here is Prismatic Crystal. And Prismatic Crystal is basically conjures a Prismatic Crystal at the target location, which is attackable by only the Mage and takes 30% additional damage. When the crystal takes damage, it instantly releases a burst of energy dealing damage, split evenly between all enemies within 8 yards. This is okay. The problem is that it's static. It's in one place only. I'm gonna cast it here, and if they don't stay there, then I'm out of luck. So you cast it, it automatically targets it, and then it starts to do damage. So definitely something I think only PvPers will take, but I can't be for certain about it, and we don't know whether or not it's going to change. It's got a minute cooldown right there. I just don't see PvPers taking it. PvEers may take it if it does enough damage. So that's the entirety of the Arcane Mage class. Most of the changes are all into the talent section. I mean, almost everything that has been changed with mages has been in the talent section. So I overall feel they're kind of in a good place. Arcane mages, in terms of Arcane Mages, in terms of PvP, are going to feel better because they were more of a turret class, kind of like Shadow Priests, and all the other classes were brought down to their level. So they're automatically going to feel buffed just for the sheer fact that everyone else was brought down to their level. Otherwise, I think that's everything about Arcane Mages. My next video is going to be on Fire Mages. Until then, I will see you guys later. Tearless out.